समन्तरान्तस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं गुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपीशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी शुभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमः। ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्पादमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। ओम तत्सत्। Hare Krishna. So welcome to the chapter overview series. We are today on the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is entitled Sankhya Yoga. Literally, that means the analytical study of the nature of reality, especially with respect to the distinguishing between matter and spirit. This chapter is also described as a summarized study of the Bhagavad Gita because within this chapter, the Lord not only answers Arjuna's questions, but also gives a broad perspective of the entire spiritual process. So let us try to understand the summary study. I'm going to share the screen which has verses so that you can follow along. Yeah. So this particular chapter begins with Arjuna telling Krishna that, "Oh Lord, I do not want to fight." In fact, by the end of chapter 1, Arjuna has already come to that point. The Lord, in the beginning of this chapter, starts by chastising Arjuna by saying that, "Arjuna, from where this kind of weakness of heart has come to you? I didn't expect this from you. Get up and fight. Your logic is full of faults." But Arjuna is not convinced. Arjuna starts arguing, "Oh Lord, are you telling me to fight and raise weapons against Bhishma, Drona, and these superiors? How can I do that? I don't want to enjoy a kingdom which is tainted by the blood of these great souls." And just think about it. Even if I win, what is the use? I don't want such a kingdom. Oh Arjuna, oh Krishna, I'm getting confused. I'm getting so confused. I do not know whether it is good that I win by killing them or whether I should let them win by allowing them to kill me. Now I'm so confused. I don't know what is a better outcome. So being so confused, actually Arjuna resolves in his mind that he's unable to solve this dilemma by himself. Then he suddenly changes from being a friend of Krishna to becoming a disciple of Krishna. Says Karpanya doshopahat swabhava prachami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha yashreyasyan nishchitam bruhitan me shishyasteham shadi mam tvam prapannam. Krishna, I am becoming your disciple tell me what is the best thing to do in this situation. Yat Shreyasyan, the topmost, ultimate long-term benefit. Tell me about that. I am taking shelter of you. Please accept me as your disciple. So it is at this point in the Gita, the Lord, smiling and accepting Arjuna as his disciple, begins his instruction to Arjuna. And he starts by instructing Arjuna. He starts not with philosophy, but first of all, he chides him, he mildly rebukes him by saying, Arjuna, you have been behaving as if you are very learned and speaking big arguments, but actually there was no substance in your argument. You have been speaking as if you are learned, but actually you are not learned. Why? Because you have an identity crisis. You are confused about the most basic of questions, which is who I am. You don't know who you are. And all your analysis and arguments are based on a mistaken identity of yourself as the body. So obviously you are in this confused situation, Arjuna. So let me now explain to you this first most basic understanding which any learned person must have. So please hear this from me so that you become learned and you do not make foolish arguments. Arjuna, we are all eternal. You, me, all these kings, there was never a time in the past that we did not exist, nor ever in the future there will be such a time. The change that you're talking about, the destruction that you're talking about, is actually something which happens to matter. Matter by nature is always going through flux, always going through change. And matter is always dead. It is continuously going through transformation. It is temporary. But understand, we, being spiritual in nature, never undergo any change. We are avyaya. We are eternal, sanatan. So when you're talking about death and destruction, what are you talking about? The soul never dies and matter is always dead. So this definition of death itself is a big interesting question, because actually there is no such thing as death. The soul is eternal. But change definitely is inevitable, Arjuna. Change is going to happen. It always happens. Even in this body, Arjuna, think about it. What to speak of death? Even in this life, your body is continuously going through change. From birth to youth to old age, and then withering, and finally death. That is changed throughout your life. So why is it so difficult to understand at the time of death, the soul moves to another body and continues? This phenomenon is a natural occurrence within the material sphere. Understand that the soul, who's eternal and unaffected, is actually animating this body, just like a driver animates and drives the car. So do not be surprised and do not be disturbed, because even as matter changes, even as the body goes through transformation, the soul remains unaffected. He thinks he's affected because he wrongly identifies himself with the body. The soul is not affected by birth or death of the body. The soul is not affected by happiness or distress, but he seems to be affected because of misidentification. And material world will always go changing and always go through various kinds of transformations. So, Arjuna, keep it in mind. Just like there are winter and summer seasons, sukha and dukkha for this body and circumstances related to this body will keep on coming. A learned soul who understands the reality of the eternality of the soul and the non changeability of the soul, he tolerates all these changes. He tolerates all these transformations. So you must also learn to tolerate. Do not anchor your consciousness onto the bodily platform. Anchor it onto the unchangeable reality of the soul. This body will change. whether it dies today or later. Just like when clothes become old, we take off the old clothes and replace them with new ones. Similarly, Arjuna, at the time of death, the soul will give up an old withered body and accept a new one. Why to become so disturbed by it? It is a new, fresh body, and the soul continues its journey on. So understand this: the soul is Sat, eternal, Chit, full of knowledge, and Ananda, full of bliss. The soul can neither be cut by weapons, nor be burned by fire, nor wetted by water, or dried by the wind. It is above and beyond matter, never affected by time, never decaying, always eternal, and a part and parcel of myself. So be first fixed in this understanding, because this is the most basic understanding of spirituality. And if you have this understanding right, all other understandings of spirituality and dealings with this world will automatically become a subsequent corollary, which will be easy for you to understand. But just in case, Arjuna, you are doubting what I am telling you about the eternality of the soul, let us say for a moment you believe that actually the soul, actually there is nothing like the soul. This whole consciousness is just a combination of matter, which is actually producing the symptoms of consciousness. Even if you take such a materialistic understanding, which is common in the atheistic world, even then, why is the need for so much lamentation? If indeed life is nothing but a combination of chemicals, why should one be bothered about the temporary disintegration and destruction of chemicals? Who laments for the loss of chemicals? Because ultimately that would mean none of us actually exist. So in either case, Arjuna, you see, there is no need for any kind of lamentation. Now, your other argument, Arjuna, about incurring sin. Let me explain to you with respect to sin that actually you are a Kshatriya. Why do you think you will incur sin by fighting? It is your duty as a Kshatriya to fight. And this is not just some street side fight. This is a dharmic battle, which is the duty of a Kshatriya. Kshatriyas look forward to these kind of opportunities, Arjuna, because such kind of opportunities open the door for heaven for the Kshatriyas. So you should not shy away from such an opportunity. You must welcome it. There is never fault if one performs his duty properly. There are two possibilities, Arjuna, if you fight. One is you win. If you win, then you enjoy the kingdom. You enjoy fame. If, on the other hand, you do not win the battle, if you lose and you are killed, even then, Arjun, because as a Kshatriya you die fighting a dharmic battle, you are guaranteed to achieve the heavenly planets. So you are still not the loser, you still achieve good fortune. Either you enjoy a kingdom here or you go to heaven. Why are you worried? But if you don't fight Arjun, it is going to be actually a very painful situation for you. First of all, you are a Kshatriya. If you have no kingdom, you'll be forced to live like a beggar at the mercy of others. That is going to be very painful for you. And also, if you go away from this battlefield at this critical juncture, just think of it, people will criticize you as a coward. How will you tolerate that? You are a person who has been respected. For a person who has been respected, this kind of infamy is worse than death. You will not be able to take it, Arjuna. Do not take that path. That is not a path of auspiciousness. So you should fight, because fighting is the path of auspiciousness. Do not worry about sin. Performance of duty will not incur sin. But I want to add one more point. There's one more secret that you must understand. In this world, since every endeavor is full of fault, there is always, even in the performance of duty, there may be some sort of fault involved. So now I will explain to you a secret so that even while you're performing your duty, you can do it in such a way that you will never incur any kind of ill result, inauspiciousness, not even a little bit. And this is the secret of acting in such a way that one is never affected by sin. And this is achieved by performing your duty with detachment for its fruits and with a consciousness of equanimity towards the dualities of victory, defeat, loss, gain, happiness, and distress. All this while, I was explaining to you, Arjuna, about the basic of spiritual science, which is the understanding of the soul, understanding of the self. Now, I will expand on this point that I just mentioned. Acting with the right spiritual intelligence, which is known as Buddhi Yoga, when you act with this understanding, this kind of a yoga you perform, you can act in this world in such a way that you are never bound, never touched by sin. So hear of this carefully from me so that you will always remain free. This process that I'm describing to you, Arjuna, is actually so powerful. It is so powerful that even if a little bit of advancement is done in this particular path, it ensures that the soul never ever loses that benefit. In fact, he will just continue to evolve higher and higher and higher. A human life in such a case is guaranteed. One will not fall down to a lower species. That is the great saving grace of this kind of a process. But proper progress on this path, Arjun, requires a fixed, determined intelligence. One must have a clear understanding of one's identity and the conviction of the futility of material existence. Arjuna, one must be convinced that one is not the body, one is the soul. One must not be attracted by the pleasures of the body, understanding such pleasures to be temporary and distracting one from the real goal of life. Such kind of attraction for temporary things, as may be described in flowery words in various scriptures, are actually only bewildering the living entity. Attraction to bodily enjoyments actually distracts a living entity from his spiritual progress. So do not chase after this kind of enjoyments. And people in this world are generally interested in fruitive work aimed to get some material benefit. That is not the path of auspiciousness. That kind of path keeps a person entangled in this world. Material activities will not give one any lasting good benefit. Even if material activities may give some good results, understand that material activities are always accompanied by misery in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. So consider this very carefully. Do not be miserly. You have achieved this human form of life. This human form of life can give you the highest benefit of spiritual realization, where you can have such a beautiful experience of happiness in your heart that all these material enjoyments will seem very trivial for you. So try to achieve that state. Do not be miserly. This sensual happiness that the world chases is available even for the animals. Do not be attracted by fruitive work. Fix your intelligence in this process of Buddhi Yoga. Fix your intelligence in the spiritual understanding of your real nature and act based on that understanding. If you act based on that understanding, the understanding of Buddhi Yoga, then you would have perfected the art of working in such a way that you always remain free, always remain in a state of bliss. Then you will not achieve confusion. You will be able to become wise through this process of Buddhi Yoga and actually become free, not just from miseries, but from the cycle of birth and death, which is the root cause of all these miseries. So go beyond this samsara Go beyond all these miseries by following this instruction of mine. So the Lord, like this, described in brief the process of spiritual attainment, Buddhi Yoga, which can also be understood as Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. And having said this, Arjuna actually got very excited. Wow, there is a path where I can achieve a state of perfect consciousness which is happy and undisturbed, where I can live in this world without any disturbance. Oh Krishna, please tell me, what are the symptoms of such a person? If I see such a person, how do I know? How do I identify him? How does he talk? How does he walk? How does he behave? So Krishna starts explaining the symptoms of a sthita prajna. Sthita prajna means he whose prajna, consciousness, is sthita, fixed. Fixed on what? Fixed in spiritual realization and experiencing the divine experience of that realization. Krishna says, Arjuna, a person who's tasting the sweetness of the realization of the self, who's pure in consciousness and understands himself to be spiritual, enjoys the spiritual pleasure in his own heart, in his own soul, in such a way that for him, all these material attractions become uninteresting. Because he sees that these material enjoyments, sensual enjoyments, are just related to the superfluous body and the mind, and they will never give any lasting happiness. Such a person can be externally recognized by seeing how he is always situated in a consciousness of equanimity. What does equanimity mean? Equanimity means that such a person doesn't sway in terms of his consciousness based on the opposing conditions of dualities in this world, like loss or gain. He doesn't become too depressed in loss. He doesn't become too excited when there is a material gain, because he understands both of these are temporary. And my real nature is not related to the body. My real nature is for the soul. If it is victory, he's not too excited. If it's defeat, he's not too depressed. He just fights for the sake of fighting because that is his duty. So he doesn't anchor his consciousness onto the material. Arjuna, you're going through so much confusion. Why? Because you're anchoring your consciousness on the bodily platform. Remove that anchor. Anchor yourself in reality. Anchor yourself on the platform of the soul, because that is the platform where there is no change. That is the platform of eternal knowledge and happiness. If you remain anchored to this material world, which is continuously changing, how can you expect to be peaceful? It is illogical, isn't it? So do not do like that. Become like this Sthita Prajna who is not disturbed. And it is not that the Sthita Prajna is a person who doesn't use his senses at all. He does, but he uses his senses. Even though he's not interested in sense enjoyment, he uses his senses to perform his duties, to maintain his body. It is important to act. So he does act, but he decides when he wants to engage his senses and when he doesn't want. Whenever he doesn't, he can retract his senses and remain inactive, just like a tortoise can withdraw his senses into her shell when he senses danger and when he wants to avoid interacting with the external situation. A Sthita Prajna Arjun fixes his consciousness on me and doesn't let his senses go astray. So one must be very careful to maintain this consciousness. Arjun, this Sthita Prajna can fix his consciousness. And do you know how he ensures he fixes his consciousness? He is very careful not to be contemplating on material sense enjoyment. This contemplation on material sense enjoyment is actually a very dangerous thing. When a person starts contemplating on the object of the senses, one's mind becomes attached to the enjoyment. From that attachment, lust comes. And when lust becomes frustrated, unsatisfied, there is anger. This anger, Arjuna, which is the consequence of frustrated lust, is very dangerous. It causes one's memory to become disoriented. One gets into illusion. One's intelligence is bewildered. And one does activities which causes one's own downfall. So one must stop this vicious cycle right at the beginning. Do not contemplate on the object of the senses. Understand that one's contemplation should be anchored on the divine and not on the sense objects. Else, one's consciousness will be dragged down to material suffering. So, be very careful of this cycle. Avoid this vicious cycle by controlling your mind and senses. Otherwise, your mind, even if it is focused on one sense object, it can get dragged away from spiritual consciousness, just like a wind, a strong wind can drag away a boat which is not anchored. So be very careful. Make sure your priorities in life are correct. If your priorities in life are not based on spiritual, then how will you be focused? How will you be determined? The priorities and focus of a materialistic person and a spiritual person are actually quite opposite, Arjun. They are as different as the day and the night. For a materialistic person, he is awake to sense enjoyment and he's asleep to spiritual realization. Whereas a spiritual person is awake to spiritual realization and is not too excited about material enjoyment. In fact, the transcendentally realized soul is so full in the positive experience of the bliss of self-realization that even when material desires come into his mind because of his interaction with the world, those desires do not attract any serious attention. They do not disturb his mind. He's so full in the enjoyment of himself that just like rivers which flow into an ocean fail to disturb the ocean, similarly these desires just come into his mind, but they do not disturb the equanimity of the consciousness of the ocean, which his consciousness is developed into. So try to develop your consciousness like that ocean. Such an ocean that no material desire or no material circumstance can actually disturb you. And that, Arjuna, is the path to peace. You want peace? You've been confused, you're disturbed. You are anchored on misidentification, Arjun. Remove that anchor from matter and anchor it in transcendental realization. Anchor it in realization of the understanding of yourself as a soul. Anchor it in the understanding of me as the Supreme Lord. Know that everything in this material world is temporary and belongs to the Lord. Do not try to enjoy matter. Once you have a conviction in what I have explained to you and you follow this process, then your consciousness will also become like the ocean that I described. It will never be disturbed, never be confused. And you will be actually able to live a sin-free, perfectly happy, perfectly balanced life in this world. And at the end of this life, you will never again come back into this vicious cycle of birth and death. You will be able to transcend the samsara and achieve the supreme destination, which is my spiritual abode. So, Arjuna, I have summarily explained this whole process to you, beginning with the understanding of yourself as a soul, and consequently, how you should act based on that understanding, that you always remain free from any kind of sin or suffering or misery. And in that way, you can achieve the eternal benefit. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the second chapter. So thank you very much. Please remain with us in the full series. all the way up to 18 chapters. And thank you very much. Hare Krishna.